gentlemen, and welcome to the October 20th, 2008 joint meeting of the Council Parking Authority and Redevelopment Agency. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Steve Glickman.
Here.
Councilmember Diane McNutt.
Here.
Councilmember Joe Przynski.
Here.
Vice Mayor Mike Westerman.
Here.
Mayor and Chair Barbara Spector.
Here. Now, before we get into the Pledge of Allegiance, I'm going to remind everybody that if you intend to speak on any item this evening, please submit a speaking card. This is a speaking card. You'll see them on the backs of the seats, and give them to either Stephanie or Jackie over here to my left and your right. Thank you. All right, now we go on to the Pledge of Allegiance, which is always done by a future leader. I am going to ask Kirsten and Caitlin Cook to come up here and stand here in front of me, please, so we can talk about them. Tonight's future leaders are Kirsten, age 10, 5th grade. You want to raise your hand for us, please? And Caitlin, age 9, 4th grade. Cook, students at Blossom Hill Elementary School who will be receiving a commendation for their assistance with the Safe Rides to School grant application for the Blossom Hill Sidewalk Project. Kirsten and Caitlin are environmental advocates. They are passionate about reducing carbon emissions and walk to school every day, rain or shine, and encourage families to do the same. They pick up litter on their route to school once a week and often pick up trash in the Blossom Hill School play area during their lunch period. Another interesting fact about Kirsten and Caitlin is that they are both candidates to earn their black belt in Taekwondo this December. Let's give these women a round of applause. If you'll please stand and face the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, and we want to go over and meet Mr. Glickman. Now, they're not going to go too far because I'm going to be calling them back up in a little while. Closed session report, Mr. Korb.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Council did meet in closed session tonight on 3 items. The first 2 were conferences with legal counsel, the first concerning existing litigation, Moreno et al. Versus Town of Los Gatos, and the second anticipated litigation, and this concerns a claim with the the County of Santa Clara concerning property tax administration. In both cases, direction was given, no final actions were taken. The third item was a conference with the town's labor negotiator concerning all of the town's represented and unrepresented groups. The negotiator was Rumi Portillo, the Human Resources Director. Direction was given, no final actions were taken, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. And let me ask staff, I'm assuming that Kirsten's and Caitlin's accommodations are down there? Thank you. All right, Kirsten and Caitlin, come back up and join me. These are popular women this evening. And your family's out there making sure they take a lot of pictures of you. There you go. Before I read the commendation, I just wanted to add another interesting fact to point out. More than 60 letters received by the town in support of the Safe Route to Schools project were a direct result of Kirsten and Caitlin's efforts. The girls went door to door to educate nearby residents about the need for a sidewalk for safety and environmental issues. Thank you both very much. Now their commendation. Whereas there is a need to create safe routes to school to encourage children and their parents to walk or ride their bicycles safely to school, and whereas the town of Los Gatos uses Safe Routes to School federal grant funds to improve the quality of life for pedestrians and bicyclists by building safer street crossings, intersections, and sidewalks, and whereas the town recently submitted a Safe Routes to School grant application for the Blossom Hill Sidewalk project, and whereas Caitlin, and this is Caitlin, and we also have Kristen, demonstrated a significant commitment to the Blossom Hill Sidewalk project by gathering letters of support from surrounding neighborhoods, and whereas Caitlin and Kristen Cook's perseverance and initiative was instrumental in the completion of the Safe Routes to School grant application. Now, therefore, the Town Council of the Town of Los Gatos does hereby render, with special appreciation, a commendation to Caitlin and Kristen for her leadership and support of the Safe Routes to School grant application and Blossom Hill Sidewalk project, signed by the mayor and all of the council people. Congratulations to both of you. All right, they don't want to say anything, but I know they're thinking thank you. Do I have Lena here today, this evening? Okay. Where? Oh, there you are. I didn't see you. Come on up. First of all, this is Lena Ayar, and she's getting a commendation for the reasons which you will soon hear. Whereas Lena Ayar served the town of Los Gatos as a student member of the town's Community Services Commission from October 2007 to September 2008, and whereas during this period she unselfishly contributed her time, energies, and capabilities to the Community Services Commission, and whereas the town council feels that such outstanding public service deserves special recognition, now therefore the town council of the town of Los Gatos does hereby render with special appreciation a commendation to Lena Ayar for dedicated public service to the town of Los Gatos and to its residents, signed by the mayor, vice mayor, and all of the council people. Congratulations. Another person who chooses not to say anything, although I will tell you that although she's retiring from one commission, she just several weeks ago applied for and was appointed to the Parks Commission, correct? And so she is continuing in her public service, and I anticipate in about 1 year from tonight she will be receiving another commendation. All right, at this point I'm going to turn the podium and the mic over to Mr. Glickman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's my great pleasure tonight to commend a local businessman and youth advocate and former colleague of mine on the school board, Andrew Finelli. Mr. Finelli, would you come up and join me here, please? Well, I had the pleasure of meeting Andrew the first time when he joined our elementary school board in 1998. And at that time, he had well begun his business of instructing our young people in the martial art of Taekwondo. And I'm going to let him tell you how many students in this community he has trained and he has served since he began that wonderful, wonderful effort. But I will tell you that when he served with me on the school board, he was the school board member that all the kids knew, because he was the one who was always on campus, always meeting the kids, always working with the teachers. And it is my great, great pleasure to present this commendation to him tonight, which I would now like to read. Whereas Andrew Finelli, a Los Gatos resident for the past 35 years, opened his first business, All Pro Taekwondo, on Los Gatos Boulevard in April 1997. And whereas Andrew Finelli has also been a teacher for the Los Gatos Saratoga Recreation Department, serving as a mentor and a role model for students by teaching character and honor through the discipline of martial arts. And whereas Andrew Finelli served as one of the youngest members of the Los Gatos Union School District Board of Trustees from 1998 to 2002, to improve school infrastructure and increase teacher salaries in hopes of providing students with a brighter future. And whereas Andrew Finelli's dedication to the community is demonstrated through his unwavering commitment as a teacher for the martial arts locally, serving as an advocate for youth with his participation on the Los Gatos Union School District Board of Trustees, and celebrating his family's love of sports by operating a successful martial arts business that serves over 300 of our children annually. Now, therefore, the Town Council of the Town of Los Gatos does hereby render, with special appreciation, commendation and thanks to Andrew Finelli for his outstanding contributions to the community of Los Gatos. Ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Finelli.
Thank you, everyone, for attending today. I'm deeply honored and humbled to receive this award. I'd like to thank the Town of Los Gatos and especially Mr. Steve Klickman. I have all my family and friends here. I started a long time ago this journey of teaching martial arts. I have so many students here, and I want to call you up a little bit later. But I've been very fortunate and blessed to be in a profession to teach martial arts to children, to make an impact in their life, and to be a role model at the same time. And that's a reward that I will always cherish for the rest of my life. I have my family here. I like to tell my thanks and love and support to my parents, Dominic and Marilyn Finelli. Please stand. This award I want to dedicate to my father. My father has owned a business for many years, and being a young boy, coming from a family of 7 siblings, I was number 6. My father worked many long hours, many hard days, and I would say I got my work ethic from my father. My wife, Leah, and son, Anthony, thank you for your love and support and for putting up with me. And also, my dear friend, David Nadine Kraft, thanks for your love and support and being there for me. All right, in closing, I want to call up all of my students that I see today, Daniel and Gabriel James, Stephanie and Amanda Liu, Advik Guru, Carly Jones, Raymond Tersini, Orly, Alec, and Alex Cuevas, my assistant instructor. Anybody else I forgot? Come on up here. Thank you again for coming today. It really means a lot to me, and something I will cherish for the rest of my life. Thank you again for taking the time to come down here.
Thank you all very much. Congratulations again, Andrew. Thank you.
Thank you all very much for joining us, and I can tell from the fact they are all getting up and leaving that you'd like a minute to exit the chambers. While they're doing that, I should also note that Yaron Zhang, Community Service Commission, and Madeline Kervokian, Parks Commission, were also given commendations this evening. However, they were unable to be here to actually receive them in person. We will be sending those commendations to them. All right, now, with regard to agenda item 12, which is the Masol Avenue Bay Tree Apartments agenda item, let me first of all note that there has been a request by the applicant and a recommendation by staff that this item be continued to December 1st. I have no cards from anyone. Okay, I have one card for someone wishing to speak on this item. Is there anybody else here this evening, by a show of hands, who would like to speak on the item this evening as opposed to December 1st? All right, right now I should say I see no hands. What I am inclined to do then is, rather than keep this agenda item to the end of the agenda, which is where it currently is, to move it up and look to the council for a motion to continue. But before you do that, let me say that I am talking about agenda item 12, 347 Masol Avenue, which is a request to adopt a plan development ordinance making a zone change from RM512 to RM1220 PD for a 56-lot residential subdivision to convert the existing apartments to condominiums at 347 Masol Avenue, APN 510-14004, Bay Tree Apartments, continued from 8/18/08, request for continuance to 12/1/08. May I have a motion?
I wish to speak, please.
All right, now, as this evening, I would not normally speak directly to the audience, but I'm going to break my own rule for this time. Tonight, as opposed to December 1st?
Indeed, I have a card.
Okay. All right, then what I will do is leave it to the end of the agenda rather than moving it up. So we will now skip over that and go to the consent items to be acted upon in a single motion. I have consent items 7 and 10 already pulled from the consent calendar. I had Mr. Glickman indicate to me that he will be abstaining on agenda item, or it's a no vote. It's a no vote on agenda item 5. Does anybody from the council want to remove any other item from the consent calendar? Seeing none, anybody else from the audience wishing to remove an item from the consent calendar? Seeing none, may I have a motion? Yes, Mr. Wasserman.
I'll make a motion to approve consent items 1 through 10, excluding 7 and 10 at this time.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the consent calendar excluding 7 and 10, which, by the way, will be heard after other business. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? And we have one opposition on number 5. Verbal communications. At this point in our agenda, anyone wishing to address the council on an item not on our agenda, will be asked to come forward. You should have submitted a card for this also. The first person whose name comes up here is Carl Guardino.
Thank you, Mayor Spector and members of the council. My name's Carl Guardino. I live at 489 Bird Avenue here in Los Gatos. I'm here this evening to invite each of you, as well as the other residents in our town, to join us Thanksgiving morning for the 4th annual Applied Materials Silicon Valley Turkey Trot, Run or Walk for Health, Hope, and a Home. As you know, this is our 4th year with this Silicon Valley-wide tradition. We hope to bring out 8,500 people this year to run or walk the 5K, to run the 10K, to join us for the Kids Fun Run, the Pro Race, the Elite Challenge as well. If we achieve that goal, we will clear more than $250,000 for 3 great local charities: the Second Harvest Food Bank, the Housing Trust of Santa Clara County, and the Children's Health Initiative. It seems especially poignant to invite you to this year's race because we're trying something new. It will be in addition to the race, the Akina Solar Mayor's Cup challenge. We have asked all 15 cities and towns in Santa Clara County, as well as our Board of Supervisors, to join us personally that day to run or walk the 5K. It has nothing to do with speed. It's about participation and encouraging our colleagues, friends, neighbors, and family to do likewise so that we can build a stronger community and start our holidays in a fun and healthy way. And you have a chance to have bragging rights for the entire year and be, of course, the person who takes home the Mayor's Cup. Councilmember Vice Mayor Wasserman, I want to thank you. I know you've already signed up or are intending to do so, and want to emphasize it's not about speed. Walking the 5K with a cup of coffee, pushing a baby stroller, whatever you would like, gets us all out there to start our holidays in a healthy way and to help folks a lot more needy than ourselves. So thank you again for your leadership in making our valley a healthier valley, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to pass these to each of you because I know you want to register tonight, and I will pass these out to the audience as well. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, the next card on verbal communications, Citizen Ray.
Yes, indeed. I wanted to talk tonight. First comment has to go to Mr. Larson. Hooray for Mr. Larson. Beautiful temperature in the room tonight. Beautiful. I even took off my sweater. Okay? It's so comfortable. And what does that tell me? Our new boiler is installed and working. Am I right? There's a positive nod from the manager. Wonderful. Congratulations. Cold is about on us, and you're ready. Whew. The next item. Congratulations to our new man, Todd Capurso. Okay? New Public Works Director of Los Gatos. And what did he do that's so outstanding? He took out the 100-foot-long row of wood chips. It was across from Courtside. 15, 20 foot high, 100 foot long, ugly as sin. What is that doing there in our high-rent district? I convinced Mr. Capurso that he ought to take a look at it, and he did, and he came up with the right answer. Hooray for Todd, hooray for Mr. Larson, who appointed him. Okay, so much for the good news. Bad news. I want to comment about Mr. Larson's appointment of Mr. Lurtz to a deputy town manager. Mr. Larson, I got to tell you, the why and wherefore of that doesn't make any sense to me. I've been in 8 years in Los Gatos to every council meeting practically and to every planning commission meeting as a public citizen. And I tell you, this guy lies, cheats, and steals on a regular basis, okay? Proof positive of that is what he did upon DeSantis, okay? He said nobody could see it, so we don't put up the story poles. Why? Unbelievable lie. All the people on Wooded View look right down on it. All the people on Teresita Way look down on it. Unbelievable. And he kept the planning commission from doing their duty and their job to inspect the property before they came to an informed opinion, whether yea or nay. He kept them off the property. Unbelievable. So, Mr. Larson, you know, what do we do about this man, okay? I'm going to give you a chance to straighten him away.
Thank you.
before we take the next step.
Citizen Ray, that's it.
Got it.
All right, we are up to, I have no other cards on the public forum, verbal communication, so we will now move on to public hearings. I have to ask Mr. Korb, you have to refresh my memory here, lawyer term. We have an appellant and an applicant, and so what is the timing that they would get as far as the amount of time allotted to their speaking?
They get 10 minutes.
Each of them?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we're on agenda item 11, which is to consider an appeal of a planning commission decision approving a request to demolish a single-family residence and to construct a new residence on property zoned R18, APN 409-15021, architecture and site application S07188, property location 14329 Mulberry Drive, property owner applicant, Hallmark Community Services, appellant Dennis Chambers. Does staff?
And just as a matter of reminder, the appellant does go first after the staff report.
Correct. All right. Do we have a staff report?
Yes, Director of Community Development and soon-to-be Deputy Town Manager Bud Lortz will be providing the staff report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council, ladies and gentlemen. This application does involve the property at 14329 Mulberry Drive. It has to do with an architecture and site application S07188. In terms of background, the property owner intends to develop the property with a single-family home that will function as a state-licensed small group home. In this instance, they are working under a pilot program of SB 962, which is seeking housing throughout the area for individuals who currently reside at Agnew State Hospital and have health care needs. Pursuant to state law, the town has no jurisdiction regarding the small group home use. Therefore, the council is limited to discussing only the proposed architecture and site application involving the new single-family residence. The applicant is requesting to demolish the existing home, construct a new one-story, 5-bedroom home. The project was reviewed by the town's consulting architect as well as the town's consulting arborist. The Development Review Committee approved the project on June 17th of 2008. 4 conditions were added to the standard conditions that we had drafted based on public input. One was to include a 8-foot high fencing, that there was to be a pre-construction meeting with the neighbors, that there was to be signage for the fire lane, and also some drainage improvements. Subsequent to that DRC approval, the application was appealed to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission considered the appeal on August 27th, 2008, and upheld the decision of the DRC and denied the appeal. There were 4 conditions added. One was to lower the height of the fence to 7 feet if the property owners adjacent to that fence were agreeable to a fence height over 6 feet. There was also a condition to step the southern boundary line fence down towards the driveway to increase vehicular sight distance if both property owners agreed. There was a condition requiring landscape screening along the southerly property line, and then there were some minor architectural changes that were added as conditions. The Planning Commission's decision was appealed to the Town Council on 3 issues. Residential design guidelines were cited as a reason for the appeal, as was the tree removal request and the calculation of the floor area ratio. The recommendation is to uphold the Planning Commission's decision and to approve the architecture and site application subject to the conditions that are included in the staff report. That concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Lortz? Mr. Glickman.
Yes, thank you very much. I just wanted to clarify something from my understanding you just said. When you were talking about some of the modifications, and in particular the fence, you said if the adjacent property owner agrees. Was it not my understanding that for both of those issues it was a mutual agreement, or was that fence different?
That was agreed to by the based on the testimony that was received at the Planning Commission meeting. The applicant is certainly agreeable to not only installing the fence but to paying for that fence. The adjacent property owner needs to agree to any fence that's higher than 6 feet.
Okay. And again, second or three quick questions. It's been my recollection, I've been doing this for a bit of a while, even a 7-foot fence seems a little unusual to my recollection. Is that, if we strictly look at similar residential properties in town, is that common, uncommon, standard, very unusual, what?
It's not unusual for property owners to request a fence that's taller than 6 feet, but both affected property owners have to agree.
Okay. And finally, if I might, in my reading of the Planning Commission discussion, there was some discussion of a requirement for a little more articulation on one wall, and I just wondered where that stood, since you didn't make mention of it.
The applicant is agreeable to that, and we'll be working with the consulting architect on what that is. I would expect that it will be a trellis work on that elevation.
Thank you very much.
Other questions for Mr. Lortz? All right, then we will now open the public testimony, the public hearing. As Mr. Korb pointed out, the first speaker will be the appellant. The appellant is Dennis Chambers. So, Mr. Chambers, if you could come forward, and you will have up to 10 minutes.
See if I do better this time than I did last time. Okay, my name is Dennis Chambers, and I live at 14333 Mulberry Drive. I'm next door to this place that's trying to be built.
Dennis, could you pull the microphone towards you? Thank you.
Sorry, I scoot over some. I'm appealing this because I think from the Planning Commission, because I think they overlooked some important facts. According to your own brochures, pamphlets that I turned in on my appeal, I put down the page numbers and the items that I said. It's safety, parking, and privacy, which is mentioned in this pamphlet. I have written down the pages, numbers, etc. of the appeal. And in any of these, either of these, it does not exempt a group home from following these rules. All bedrooms have doors leading to the outside. That's not a typical of a single-family resident. The foundation is apparently or approximately 3 feet off the ground in the back level, which puts the bottom of the window starting at about 5 foot high, and then you have a 6-foot fence. That would be on the back of the house, the right and the left side of the house. People can sit in their bedrooms in bedroom number 5 and look right into the back of my property. Not only mine, but Joe Clark, who lives right behind them. What I would like to have done in this to eliminate the doors from the bedrooms leading to the outside, eliminate the windows in bedroom number 5 facing my house, because they have another bedroom facing, or another window facing the back. That would give me privacy from that window being way up high. Move the window in bedroom number 4 so that it looks into the courtyard instead of into my house. eliminate at least 2 of the windows looking out at my house from the front room. They've got 4 big windows, about 15 feet of window, if I'm not mistaken, looking right at the side of my house. Bring the elevation of the foundation of the back down to the minimum heights required for foundation height. That would lower the windows. And then bring the ceiling down, the ceilings down to 8 feet, which there are 9 feet high ceilings in the plans. I don't know if that's typical of homes or not. That's all I really have.
All right, let's see if we have any questions for you. Questions?
Sure.
No, thank you very much.
Okay.
Now, the applicant will also have 10 minutes. I have a card, Walmart Community Services, and it looks like Jennifer Ricker. All right. And I don't know how many people you have representing Walmart Community Services, but you will have a total of 10 minutes for you.
Great. Thank you so much. My name is Jennifer Richer. I work with Hallmark Community Services. We are the current owner and non-for-profit developer of 14329 Mulberry Drive. I stand before you today as a person who's wearing many hats in my role with Hallmark. I've spent the last 15 years of my professional career working with special needs populations with a heavy emphasis on community integration. It's this experience that helps guide our agency in making sure that we respect the value, the commitment that cities, towns, and jurisdictions set forward to ensure that we are designing within the residential commitment and capacity of the architectural design within each community that we build within. We've been part of a large project called the Bay Area Housing Plan. We have now been in construction and completed most of the 61 homes that have been part of this project to allow residents from Agnews Developmental Center to move into the community. At this point, we have worked closely with those jurisdictions. We have respected the process of the town of Los Gatos. And knowing that our homes can oftentimes have more scrutiny because of the normal and real anxieties that neighborhoods can have when it comes to embracing something new and something different, such as non-traditional families moving into their communities, we've respected that particular design input. We work closely with the Development Review Committee with the town of Los Gatos and the consulting architect to make sure that we met with the town's commitments to the developmental design reviews within their communities. We met with our neighbors to make sure that not only did we introduce the project, but that we elicited design input and feedback. And unfortunately, rather than receive a lot of design input, we were faced with a lot of emotional outpouring about the uncertainty and fears about this population moving within their community. We're here tonight to reaffirm to the neighbors, to the town of Los Gatos, that per the Development Review Committee's decision to approve our plans as of June of this year, and per the decision of the town's Planning Commission to uphold the DRC approval in August, that we are in compliance with the town of Los Gatos rules and codes. It's our sincere desire to be permitted to be able to proceed with this project. We have 5 individuals that have been waiting and are still waiting to be able to move into their home. They're in a hospital right now at Agnews that is slated to close. And without the ability to move forward on this project, if there is not design intent that we need to fit and that we need to adjust and modify for, we'd like to see the council tonight approve our ability to move forward so that these 5 individuals can start to plan their future in their community. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Florence Yalung. I represent one of the providers that was chosen for this project, and we are the California National Mentor. The only thing that we can commit at this point is, aside from all the house structure and modifications, is the service. One thing that we will commit is to make sure that everything is integrated into the Los Gatos community area or community, and making sure we're also very sensitive to what everybody is really fearing, like parking. You know, parking on the site, making sure that the house will look like any other homes, aside from the other modifications that was mentioned earlier. But again, we would commit to what a good neighbor would do, to Los Gatos community.
Thank you. Yes, I think the applicant still has a few more minutes.
Good. Good evening. My name is Chris McCann, and it's a pleasure to be in my home community talking before you. I am the Executive Director of Bay Area Housing Corporation, and we will be the owners of this home once it is constructed. Our offices are located directly across the street over at 101 Main Street. I've been a resident in Los Gatos for 20-plus years. My daughter, Darcy, went to Los Gatos High School, and my son, Derek. My daughter has cerebral palsy and is in a wheelchair and was very fortunate to be able to grow up in a community like Los Gatos. For the last 11 years, I've been doing housing for people with developmental disabilities in the greater Santa Clara County community. This Bay Area housing plan is so exciting because it is moving people that are moving out of Agnews back into their communities. And the amount of elegance and the amount of dedication and commitment of doing this right has been really, really wonderful. We will be the property managers as well as the owners of the property, and I can guarantee you that it will be done right. And these homes will be in perpetuity for people only with developmental disabilities that fall into this category. As far as the families and the neighbors in the community, it is definitely our intention to work very closely with them and to be members of the community. So I'd love to answer any questions if anybody has any. Thanks.
Thank you. We had Jennifer and Florence and Chris. Does anyone have questions for any of them? Mr. Wasserman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do, and I don't know which entity with the applicant. I'll ask you my question. You tell me which person should answer. Personally, I'm beyond the use issue. It's not in town's jurisdiction. It's gone through DRC. Staff has answered the issues raised by the appellant as far as I'm concerned. Some things within our jurisdiction, some not. A comment was made by the second speaker about being a good neighbor. For myself, I'm looking at this project as a remodel of a home, reconstruction, whatever you want to call it. Okay, use and all, that doesn't matter. That's not my issue. Okay, what my issue is, and it ties into good neighbor, and if I could have a response to this, is a good neighbor is concerned about privacy. Okay, on my almost 6 years here on council, probably a third of every land use home item that comes before us, one person or the other building a second story, doing whatever, looking into the backyard, tree screening, it's a privacy issue. When I heard the appellant this evening, when he spoke first, he talked about eliminating a window, moving a window, lowering a foundation. Okay, those are all privacy issues. And I'd like someone on your side, okay, if you will, please, to address that privacy issue and what, if anything, you can do about the issues that have been raised by your neighbor.
Sure. These are the first times we've heard very specific issues brought forth by our neighbor on specific solutions they'd like to see when it comes to privacy. I can say that one issue that was brought up was the concern that we have direct exiting out of every bedroom and that they'd like to see that be changed. We're more than willing to work on that change, but we have to ensure that we follow the fire marshal code, the state fire marshal code, regarding the occupancy classification of these homes. So that would be one thing that wouldn't be in our control to choose to do. It would be really up to the jurisdiction having control.
Excuse me, Ms. Richer, if I may interrupt.
Sure.
Through the Mayor, thank you. When I heard the appellant speak, I heard three things.
Okay.
I'm speaking as one council member. That wasn't one of the three. The three that I heard, if I can just get your response to, I would appreciate. One was eliminating a window in bedroom number 5. One was moving a window. One was lowering the foundation. I wanted to know if any of those issues have been brought up to you before, if you've discussed them, if you're prepared to
They have not been brought up
them.
to us before, but are we willing to look at those? Absolutely. Are we willing to ensure that we can try and minimize any impact of the windows on that side of that home impacting his property? Certainly.
Wonderful.
But
Thank
just
you.
within reason. Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions? Let me just follow up on that so I can get clarification. I have the renderings here in exterior elevations in front of me. And do the doors/windows referenced in Mr. Wasserman's questions, are they all on the same facing side, do you know?
I believe that they're all facing his property, not all with direct line of sight into his home. I think 15% per our calculations actually have line of sight into the back of his lot.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Other questions? No. Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Mr. Glickman.
Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, I did want to also follow up with the applicant, not the appellant, on some of the issues that were raised by the appellant. I think some of them have been mentioned, but Mr. Wasserman did mention the issue of all bedrooms having doors going to the outside. What I'd like to do, Madam Mayor, with your permission, is to direct the question to staff and then see if the applicant needs to comment on that. Mr. Welch, you've heard the issues that
Mr. Glickman, what I would like to do, though, is that I have quite a few cards.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't aware of that. Okay. In that case, I will hold that question until we've heard from everybody.
Keep that thought. Jess Guy.
Thank you. On? Off? Is this on? It is now. Thank you. Jess Guy. I have property at 14275 Mulberry, where my son and my son-in-law and my daughter live. A couple of simple things on this issue. We've had a number of meetings with Hallmark Community Services. From the very first one, it kind of devolved into a we're going to build it, you can't do anything to stop us attitude. It's not so much a fear of population. That's a misstatement. Our concern is for people living there. I don't care if it's a family or non-ambulatory people who are disabled. There are serious fire issues that we've seen at that property. We've talked about it. We've tried to get some answers. They talk about bringing fire trucks in case there's a fire, but anybody who's actually visited the site knows that a fire truck blocks that whole driveway and you're not going to get 5 non-ambulatory people out of that area in case of a fire. That's a major concern that I have. It's a poor site selection. Whoever picked it needs to go back to community planning. The other issue that comes up is the lady that mentioned there are people still waiting. They're going to have to wait a long time. This house has to be demolished legally. It has to have the site cleaned up legally. Construction has to be done legally. And certifications have to be done legally. This is going to take time. You know, we've already had probably close to $1 million of taxpayer money, or at least $750,000 spent just to buy the property. At least that's what the state shows. I don't know how many more hundreds of thousands of dollars of taxpayer money is going to be put into this, all for a very poor site selection. We're not concerned about use. Use is not the issue. It's the bad choice of the site, and that's what bothers some of us in the neighborhood more than anything else. We have asked questions about off-site parking, people coming and going. Nobody's ever answered that. There is no room for parking except for probably 2 buses that they talk about having at the site. And every time this is raised, they say, well, we'll find a place. People visiting can park somewhere else. People visiting can do this. They won't tell us what they've done in that area. It's just kind of they're going to build it. We can ask questions. They'll be reasonable, and we'll move ahead. That's it. Thank you.
Questions? Thank you. Dave Dodds.
Yeah, good evening. My name's Dave Dodds. I'm a consultant to the State Department of Developmental Services and also the Bay Area Housing Plan. And I think you've got a pretty good assessment of the project itself and your little background on the SB 962 and what we're trying to do with the closure of Agnews Developmental Center. It certainly has been a longer process than we envisioned, that is the closure of Agnews. We are prepared, and I think we demonstrate over time that it will take as long as it takes to do this safely to everyone's satisfaction. At this point, we would just encourage that we have been working with this for a long time. This is our final house in the project of over 60 homes. We've managed to get them through. It hasn't always been easy. There's been a lot of compromising that's been going on in this process, rightly so. A lot of neighbor interaction in multiple neighborhoods throughout the Bay Area, in Alameda, Contra Costa, and Santa Clara County, San Mateo County. And so we just would like to proceed with it. Like they said, we're nearly finished with the closure of Agnews. These will be probably the final folks that leave, and we'll make arrangements for them until that happens. It's a licensed community care facility. There's an awful lot of oversight. As part of the license, there's a fire clearance that goes into it, that homes are sprinkled. There are emergency evacuation plans that are required. It will be monitored by both the state, the local regional center. As you know, there's a property manager to see that the property is kept up. In the planning of this, there's been a lot of good work that's gone into this, and we believe it's a quality home, and we just would ask that we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Dodd? Ms. McNutt.
Thank you, Mayor. What is the staffing situation at the home? Is there someone there 24/7? Is it one staff person or more than one?
There will be 2 staff persons there 24 hours, and
24/7.
Nursing staff as well.
And do they live in, or is
No, they do not live
staffing?
there. They're on shift.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you, Mr. Dodds. Citizen Ray? Florence Yalung? You already spoke, okay. Then I have Larry DeQuina.
Good evening, Mayor Spector and council members. I am Larry DeQuino, and I live at 14330 Mulberry Drive, which is directly across from the shared driveway. If any of you have ever been out to Mulberry Drive, it is a very narrow street, particularly narrow, and especially at this part of the street where this home is going to go in. And when there's cars parked on each side of this street, there's literally only about 15 feet of access for cars to drive by, and only one car can drive by at a time. And we've had a number of accidents just from people backing into cars that are parked there in front of our house. There are a large number of suitable sites available in Los Gatos, yet Hallmark chose to purchase one of the most inaccessible sites possible. And then earlier in the year, we met with Hallmark, and they promised a parking plan that would work in this unique situation. Yet after several months and many calls to Hallmark, we still have not received a parking plan. We do not believe a suitable parking plan is possible, hence the reason we have not received one. As was stated before, there's 2 nurses on staff at all times. That's 2 cars. They have a van, and then at shift change, there's 2 more cars. So this 2 parking spaces, it just doesn't add up, and that's not to mention any visitors. There are 7 children under the age of 8 which live within 2 houses of this property, and there are at least 7 others that I could think of as I was sitting down who are elementary school age or younger on the street. So on a nice day, we have bikes, scooters, tricycles. It's a very, very busy street for children, and we're very concerned about the safety issue with this parking. We've been promised that we would have a good neighbor in Hallmark, yet we have not seen the good faith promised, as they have not produced a parking plan to this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. DeQuino? Mr. DeQuino, you do have a question from the Vice Mayor.
Yes.
Hi, Mr. DeQuino. Back to your traffic and parking issue. In the staff report, we've heard that pursuant to state law, town has no jurisdiction over the group home use, which includes any traffic associated with this use. You understand that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Is your comment then about on-site, you're asking us more about on-site parking than traffic cars going in and out, which we don't have jurisdiction over?
Yes, on-site parking, there's 2 parking spaces, and there's a number of cars. There's going to be shift changes at odd hours of the day, 6 a.m. and in the evening, and there, it's a dark street, no street lights, as is very common in Los Gatos. So parking it just does not work to have an extra 2 cars parked on this very, very narrow street in front of our house, where we have cars coming around. We're near the corner. Cars come off of, there's no stop sign at the corner of Mulberry and Wedgwood. Cars come around that corner. We often have trucks from construction parked there from what's going on across the street with the golf course. And it's just basically a blind corner. And any more parking in that area just really exacerbates the problem. It's a terrible situation. And there's no problem right now because...
Thank you. So your concern is parking rather than traffic? Because there's nothing, you understand, it's out of our jurisdiction traffic-wise.
Well,
but off-site, you're looking for on-site parking remedies?
Yeah, that's something that's been promised to us. Plus, there's the safety issue with the fact that there's 2 parking spaces back there and a backup. So if you're going to have, any plan would have to end up putting more cars back there, or for convenience, people will park there. And then if they're trying to back down that driveway, the very, very dangerous situation, especially with a large van.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, before I get back to the applicant and the appellant, I have no other cards, and I see no one running up here to the microphone, and so I will now look to the applicant, correct? And the applicant will have 5 minutes, and that's for whomever wants to represent the applicant.
So I want to make sure that we have an opportunity to speak about being a good neighbor and what that really means in a project like this. I think there's been a lot of concerns from the neighborhood and the community about parking and about what the rhythm of life will look like at this particular home. Ultimately, as you pointed out, there's not a jurisdiction to review on a civic planning level what the traffic will look like. But we do have an obligation to make sure that we have suitable parking at the home. We keep hearing buses being utilized as a term for 8-passenger vans, vans that can accommodate persons in wheelchairs, and that's important. We have 2 staff person that are on duty 24 hours a day. We do have a shift change that will take place. We, not Hallmark Community Solutions, but the services, but the actual service provider. There is a big desire, and a desire that's been proven throughout the homes that we've built, where there is challenges in parking and in neighborhoods where there's parking on the street and it's congested, that we make sure that we don't bring additional nuances to the neighborhood that would be problematic. And we're willing to work with this community on that. But I will tell you that this community has street parking taking place now. Nothing has changed that until we've come along and we've helped to highlight the issue. We've offered opportunities to pave the shared driveway, to widen the shared driveway, to create a fire line across the shared driveway to make sure, or the shared egress to our driveway, to make sure that we can commit to not parking in a way that would create an unsafe condition for our direct neighbors. That has not been something that we've been able to work through easily and with a lot of consistency, but we're willing. I truly want to also communicate that as far as the concerns about fire safety, there's a process that each of these homes, because of the unique nature of the individuals living within these homes, that they have to meet strict occupancy codes. There's an occupancy code for this particular population called Group R 3.2.1. It directs us on how we have exiting that needs to take place in each of these homes, widened hallways, direct exiting out of each sleeping room. The homes are sprinklered. There's a life safety plan on how you do fire exits out of the home at any given time. And we work with the local jurisdiction to make sure that those plans are functional and that they work in this particular location. It's been brought up that this is not the right site. Well, we believe that this is a great community. We believe that this is a great neighborhood. We believe that this home is off the street, which is safe for our individuals and also brings a lot less attention to the type of home in question. I think that this could be argued for a long period of time by people who disagree on possibly the philosophy and what the concerns might be of how this brings this type of home into the community. We just simply want to put out there that we do believe that we picked a great community, that we picked a great site, that we have a home that's going to blend within the community, that we've got a great service provider that's going to work with neighbors and continue to work with neighbors in a way that they're not required to work with neighbors in this particular situation, and that we hope that at some point we'll get to a place where we can build that bridge to this community and we can find a way of common ground.
Thank you. Questions for Ms. Richer? No. All right, now the appellant will have up to 5 minutes.
Yes, I didn't bring up the safety earlier. I just said it was in the things there. We have a shared driveway, and I have a 9-year-old grandson and a 3-year-old granddaughter that play in that driveway all the time. I was told that I couldn't say that this is a community home, but I hear them doing it all the time. You know how many visitors is going to be coming up and down that driveway? There's going to be 5 people living in that house. There's going to be visitors coming up and down. The parking is very restricted back there. And from previous, I've lived in this house since 1973. And with previous owners and that, I've had a hard time backing out of my driveway because they fill up theirs and then they start parking behind my cars. And I've almost gotten into fistfights because of just asking them to move it and they wouldn't do it. I'm concerned about the safety of my grandchildren. My dad lives with me. He's 87 years old, and he takes walks up and down the driveway. The parking is going to be terrible back there. And I just found out something tonight about the doors exiting all the bedrooms. I'm kind of confused because I can't consider it a community home. It's supposed to be a single residential home. Now, every single residential home in Los Gatos does not have a door exiting their bedroom. That's not it. It's required for the community home. Now, I can't consider it a community home, but they can. And this isn't right. This isn't right at all. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Questions? We have a question from Mr. Wasserman.
Mr. Chambers, the issue about paving and widening the existing road.
Yes.
What is your response to that offer?
No, not
Okay.
my part.
I'm sorry?
Not my driveway.
You wouldn't want that to happen?
No.
Thank you.
All right, and we are now closing the public hearing, and I will turn to the council for discussion or a motion. Mr. Glickman.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. Let me now ask my question of staff. You've heard some of the specific technical issues raised by the appellant. For example, they mentioned the question of fire safety. I mean, that's something that I would normally defer to the fire department, so if we can get some clarification on that. I have certainly seen houses where every bedroom has its own exterior access. They tend to be more upscale in my view. But again, if that's unusual, by all means, let us know. So in general, if you could clarify for us the status of the specific issues that have been raised by the appellant and tell us whether they are, in your view, accurate or whether they can be mitigated or have been mitigated. If you could enlighten us, that would be very helpful.
Well, there were two. One was the driveway, but that was answered in the last question that Councilmember Wasserman asked, which was the possibility of a shared driveway, and that is not acceptable to the appellant. The other was the possibility of the doors and windows on bedrooms 4 and 5. The question is whether those could be relocated off the south elevation, and that is a possibility, but I'd want to be able to check with the fire marshal on that. I believe it would be acceptable, and I believe it's acceptable to the applicant. So if that is something that we can accommodate through the code, that could be included as a condition of approval.
Questions, comments, motion? Ms. McNutt.
Thank you, Mayor. Question on the fence height. Back when the 8-foot fence was being discussed, which I understand the appellant is not interested in at this time, did staff have a problem with that, or did the applicant have a problem with it?
No and no.
Okay. And if we were to approve this tonight with a 7 or 6 and 1, however it's defined currently, and at a later date the appellant decided that an 8-foot fence would be preferable, what would be the process, or would it be better to say up to 8 feet and already have that flexibility built in at this time?
8 feet is allowed by the code with the planning director's approval if both affected property owners are agreeable. The applicant has indicated they'd be willing to build that at their expense. The neighbor has not been receptive, but if they change their mind, all I need is a letter from them indicating that an 8-foot fence is acceptable.
Okay. Thank you.
Further questions? Mr. Glickman.
I'd just like to get a little bit of clarification on the question that Councilmember McNutt just asked, because I'm comfortable considering options, even making conditions if necessary. I just wanted to be reasonably sure that we're not setting up a situation where issues can be raised later that the applicant just becomes committed to. So, I like the way Councilmember McNutt phrased it, that, as you as Director of Community Development make your decision on what's appropriate and then hopefully what both sides will agree to, that's fine. But I'm just hoping that once that has been agreed to one time, that neither party unilaterally can say, well, on second thought, I want it different, because that can go on forever.
It could, and so a condition would help with that, and given some dynamics that seem to be happening there, perhaps a phrase that says that the cost of the fence shall be borne by the applicant.
The applicant or the one requesting the change?
I believe in this case it probably should be the applicant.
Mr. Wasserman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A question for our Director of Community Development, if I may, through you. Thank you. 2 questions. One on the fire issue. Obviously, a new home has gone through fire department, and they've inspected and looked as far as access and hoses and all of that. That's a fair assumption to make?
Correct.
That's gone through and been passed. Number 2,
yes.
I've heard twice the home is sprinklered. Okay? That's highly unusual for a new single-family home?
Given its location, it's not unusual.
Okay.
It's a flag lot, and so when they get distant from the street, the fire department requires sprinkling.
That extra level of fire protection?
Correct.
Okay, wonderful. And the second part of my question, if I may, has to deal with the privacy issues that have been raised, specifically the windows. I think we're addressing the fence. We're going to get to a fence decision in one way or another. As far as the windows, is there some, with your 30 years of experience, some phraseology to the satisfaction of the Director of Community Development regarding the windows that could perhaps be put into a motion this evening so this project can move forward?
As I mentioned, I would suggest that the windows and doors located on bedrooms 4 and 5 be relocated to the satisfaction of the Director of Community Development.
Thank you.
Did you get that down? Mr. Persinski.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A number of questions for the Director. Let's talk about the driveway first. This is a flag lot. This is a shared driveway. It's always been a shared driveway. I've got to believe that given the current condition of the house that exists that's going to be demolished, this is going to be an improvement to the neighborhood. I mean, it's blighted as it is at this point in time. I don't think there's any question of that. And so the fact that we've got an architecture and site approval from the Planning Commission directed toward us, I see no problem in the issue of attempting to modify the windows and the doors of bedrooms 4 and 5. I'm somewhat confused about the privacy issue, because in my observation of that particular site and the bedrooms indicated, they seem to look into the appellant's yard beyond the house. They're actually beyond the existing garage, beyond the existing residence, by a fairly decent distance. Looking into, I don't know exactly what the uses are back there. They look like there's a shed or there's a couple of storage facilities, but I don't see them as actually indicating for a privacy concern at this point. And at the same time, just to note that the appellant's house is 2 stories, and the applicant is a 1-story house. So the privacy intrusion would be from the appellant's property rather than the applicant's property. So I'm going to say that I think it's going to be very significant that we get both property owners to work together. I think that if we find ourselves in a situation where we've got property owners who are dueling for outcome, all that leads to is delay and bad neighbor relations. And I'm concerned about that in this case. Let's talk about the driveway at this point. The driveway is a shared driveway. It's basically pretty much gravel at this point. As I look at the property line of the applicant's property, it seems like if that's the dark broken line, that actually means that the property owner's portion of the driveway could theoretically exclude the appellant's ability to access his driveway. I would also assume that the property owner of the applicant would be within their right to, if we can't come to some agreement about the common use, they would be within their rights to fence that driveway off. Would that not be correct?
Correct.
I think that it's important that we walk away from this meeting committed to work together. An adversarial relationship is not going to work. We know the limits that are placed on us by the state, and frankly, the state's limits are to enhance the community, to allow members of our community to live within a normal residential setting without isolation and to be welcomed into a neighborhood. And my recommendation, and I'm going to make the motion to approve, my recommendation is from this meeting we go away and all parties sit down with staff and work this thing out. Because it's, to me, unacceptable that we leave here in an adversarial role. Unacceptable. So with that in mind, let me move to uphold the decision of the Planning Commission and approve architecture and site application S-07-188 and to deny the appeal.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Przinski, seconded by Mr. Glickman to uphold the Planning Commission and approve the A&S. Discussion. Mr. Wasserman.
Thank you. My questions of Mr. Przinski, if I may, Madam Mayor.
Well, let's do it this way. Why don't you just put your questions out there, and then we'll see who answers them.
I'll put my question out there, and, okay, fine. I understand what you're saying. I understand what has been said. I've heard people speak this evening, and I've read a lot of things, and there's been a couple of appeals, and it's gone through a lot of processes. And if I understand the motion that's on the floor right now, I'm a little pessimistic at parties sitting down and resolving issues. If the motion before us is to deny the appeal and proceed with the project, and that's the decision of this policymaking committee, then I understand that. But the way I heard the motion said, and that's why I was asking for clarification, Madam Mayor, the way I heard the motion said was, A, I want these people to sit down and work it out, but B, I also heard, let's deny the appeal and end this. So I needed clarification.
Yes, the motion before us right now is as staff recommended on our staff report, which is to uphold the decision of the Planning Commission and approve architecture and site. That is the motion.
Okay, then through the mayor, if I may ask a question of the motion maker.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Motion maker, perhaps I misunderstood, but I thought, I agreed with you entirely about this is a community, this is a neighborhood, people should work together. The privacy, one-story, two-story issue you brought up is an excellent point. The visibility out of the windows to the backyard, all those are excellent points, and I was going along with you. And then you mentioned about them sitting down and working things out, and then you mentioned denying the appeal. To me, denying the appeal is not the same as the two parties sitting down and working things out. So I'm missing
Madam
something.
Mayor.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Brzezinski.
I'm sorry if it was confusing, Mr. Wasserman, but the motion was simply, as the mayor stated it, to deny the appeal and to uphold the Planning Commission's decision. The other was by way of background and my own feeling that motivates me to encourage negotiation and communication, but that does not enter into the language of the motion.
Thank you.
Further discussion. All right, Ms. McNutt.
Thank you. A question if the motion maker would consider on condition number 10 on the fencing, changing the language slightly so that it says something like maybe up to 8 feet in height, just to give flexibility without a subsequent letter action as they do sit down and come to a negotiation, that would already be there as a possibility.
All right, there is a request of the maker of the motion. We'll start with him before we go to the seconder. With regard to the 8-foot on condition 10, Mr. Brzezinski?
That would be agreeable. My preference would be the language as it's been revised for the conditions, but certainly if we can put language in there through the attorney that would allow for an 8-foot fence that could be agreed upon, then that would be acceptable to the maker of the motion.
Mr. Glickman?
What would be acceptable to the seconder of the motion certainly is language that we could either resolve tonight or leave in the capable hands of the Director of the Community Development. However, I would like it to be clear that once the decision on the fence has been made by whatever party the language indicates will make it, that is the decision and it is not open to being modified unilaterally, because frankly I don't want to see anybody jerked around in the future.
All right, what I'm going to do then is right now the condition number 10 stands as is unless someone comes up with wording, be it staff or council, to amend it because it's getting too confusing. Mr. Brzezinski?
To keep it from being too confusing, as it currently reads, the fencing along the front, rear, and side property lines may be 6 feet in height with 1 foot of lattice for a total height of 7 feet, or to a total height of 8 feet to be determined by the property owners in agreement with the director. That would be the amendment.
And that would be acceptable to the seconder.
All right, good, thank you. Further discussion? Ms. McNutt.
Thank you. I also had a question. I think this is a question of staff. Given the way the language is now in the motion and the condition, is it still possible for the appellant and the applicant to have the discussion about, for staff and the applicant to make those changes on window placement and so on that you had talked about earlier, or do you need additional language on that?
We don't need language to that. We can work on that issue.
Mr. Glickman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Let me make this comment by way of disclosure. I have a son who's 30 years old who lives in a group home in the Santa Cruz area. And so I have no financial interest in this, so I don't think that I need to not participate, because I can certainly have a view if it had been demonstrated that this as a single-family residence was inappropriate, then I would have so found. But I did want to resonate with what Mr. Brzezinski said and hope that since we are in this case, the court of last resort, that once this decision has been made and that, hopes of having a different outcome are not motivating people to take certain positions, that both parties will recognize that this is what's going to be, and thereby be encouraged to work together, because this community does welcome everybody who will be a good citizen, and I have no doubt that the people who will be coming to us will be good citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? All right, we have the motion to deny the appeal to approve, subject to the conditions. The only condition that we are modifying is condition number 10, which allows a height of up to 8 feet, and to the approval of the Director of Community Development. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. All right, agenda item 12, 347 Masol Avenue, adopt plan development ordinance making a zone change from RM 512 to RM 1220 PD for a 56-lot residential subdivision to convert the existing apartment to condominiums at 347 Masol Avenue. APN 510-14004 Baytree Apartments has been continued from August 18th, 2008. I know that we have a request for continuance from the applicant and recommendation to that same continuance by staff. Do we have a staff report?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, no staff report except to respond that we are continuing to work with the applicant to address concerns and issues raised by the council in your prior discussions as well as by surrounding neighbors, and that's why staff is supportive of the requested continuance of the item.
Thank you. Questions of staff? No. The applicant, ask staff, the applicant to my knowledge is not here this evening, correct?
I do not see the applicant. We did try to notify impacted neighbors that the request was to continue.
All right, then the one speaker we have is Citizen Ray.
Madam Mayor, since I've recused myself in this matter, do I need to step out for this?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, I wanted to speak to the issue tonight, because I wanted to leave you with what I think are some thoughts that you really should have, okay, if you have a social conscience, if you're here to serve the community and not the dollar bill. You need to know and have in your mind for your consideration exactly what I'm going to give you, okay? Because I spent 4 years in the industry doing condo conversion work. I ran the rehab on about 5 large 150 to 300 unit apartment complexes, okay? And when I say deferred maintenance killed the industry some 30 years ago, I know whereof I speak, okay? There was too much deferred maintenance that was kept secret from the people that bought those units, and their only recourse was a lawsuit. After they buy in, and 2 or 3 years go by, and the plumbing goes out, this goes out, everything goes to hell in a handbasket. What have they got to do? They have the state law, real estate law, that says a developer must guarantee their project for 10 years. So they have the right to sue. And they sued, and won. And the business disappeared. Now, to my knowledge, we, the group that I work with, had not one lawsuit because we did everything as best we could. I swear to God, we put our heart and soul into those projects, okay? And they were great when we finished. But you need to ensure through a ordinance that stipulates that anybody that does a condo conversion in Los Gatos must have an initial building inspection from a disinterested, neutral third party, okay? Somebody without a conflict of interest. And that's not the developer, and that's not the owner. You need to bring in a building inspection service required by the ordinance, and you have no ordinance. So, ladies and gentlemen, you need to slow this down and get an ordinance, okay, that will serve the people of this community. That's my message for you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I have no other cards, so I will close the public portion of this and turn to the council for a motion. Ms. McNutt?
I'll move for continuance to December 1st.
Second.
Motion by Ms. McNutt, seconded by Mr. Przinski to continue this motion to, this matter to December 1st. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Mr. Glickman will return, and we are on to Agenda Item 7. This was pulled by Citizen Ray. PPW job number A09009, equipment purchase of a park structure at Live Oak Manor Park, 411-831-3802. Since there are other people in the audience, I'm going to keep these separate. So go ahead, Citizen Ray. This is just item number 7.
Okay. Yes, I wanted to communicate to you folks my concerns about this Public Works project. And I have spoken to Todd Capurso about what our experience was in Orinda when we considered putting a tot lot, which is what we're talking about, redoing the tot lot. Considered putting a tot lot under the high voltage wires of PG&E, which is exactly what you have here, okay? We found out that the electromagnetic reading at grade where the tot lot was going to go was too much for the current knowledge of what electromagnetic fields do to the human body, particularly children. We checked with PG&E to see what they could do. And we found they could, by reversing the overhead wires, they could cut the electromagnetic generation in half. Simple as that. And they offered to do it. But we said no. The residual electromagnetic fields were too much for children. Okay? And we stopped the whole damn thing. Now, is Los Gatos going to pay attention to what Orinda did? I don't know. Los Gatos, in my estimation, this is prior to Mr. Capurso, prior to Mr. Larson. It's all about the dollar bill. And the social conscience you need to care about children on this issue, is it there? Anybody there? Does anybody care enough to postpone this thing tonight and look into the problem with the electromagnetic magnification over kids' play lots? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? I know there are people in the audience. Anyone else addressing us on this? I have no cards. Seeing no one coming forward.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I'd like to make a comment, if I might.
Hold on just a moment. I want to, first of all, before we get into the council comments, does staff have anything to add to this?
Mayor and Council, Director of Parks and Public Works, Todd Capurso, is available to answer any questions. This is simply the replacement of a lot that was previously destroyed in a fire, and it has been reviewed by your designated commission prior to this recommendation coming to you.
Thank you. Mr. Glickman.
Thank you very much. We on the council have various backgrounds and various kinds of expertise, in which we always defer to staff. But in this case, I do want to comment on what was said tonight because, to be very blunt, it's fear-mongering. I was, among other things, in my past a medical physicist, and the biological electromagnetic effects to which Mr. Davis made reference are bogus. And I would like to reassure the community that the concerns he raised are not, to the best of current scientific knowledge, valid. Thank you.
Further discussion or a motion? Mr. Brzezinski.
I would like to follow up Mr. Glickman's comments. If you recall, there was an application for a Metro PCS cell site on one of the towers in that park, and this had to be 8 years ago, something to that effect. And at that time, the issue was raised, asked, and answered, and it was in full compliance with what Mr. Glickman has just said, that the data did not support the concern, and certainly the neighborhood has supported the continued use of this park and the fast tracking of the replacement of the park playground equipment. So I'm going to make the motion to approve item 7 on the consent calendar.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Brzezinski, seconded by Mr. Glickman, to make the to have the motions and the findings under the staff recommendation on page 1. Is that what staff is looking for? Okay. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. We have agenda item 10, which is the agenda item to approve the council agency minutes of October 6, 2008, pulled by Citizen Ray.
Madam Mayor and council members, while Citizen Ray is coming forward, I did want to clarify that we did have an administrative correction to the last page of the minutes under council matters, where we will be denoting the staff people acknowledged by council during their comments for the the screen on the green.
Thank you. Citizen Ray.
Thank you. Yes. I am very concerned about this, the minutes and the integrity of the minutes as follows. The minutes say that I commented about the Sarah Cole case and that the dirt area in front of Blossom Hill Park is an attractive nuisance. That was an unbelievably short condensation of what I actually said. What I actually said was that parking lot that is unpaved, that results in unregulated diagonal parking, is an attractive nuisance, and more than that, in the baseball season when it is overused, overcrowded, it is an unbelievably hazardous situation, and continues to be, okay? And the important point I made to Mr. Caperso, and I'm sure it got to Mr. Larson, is the fact that, you know, it'll be about 4 or 5 months before baseball starts again, and you got time to go in there and pave the garbage, the unbelievable roughness that still exists there, okay? Pave it over and put in parallel parking instead of unregulated diagonal. And that way it will make this parking zone 100% safe compared to what it is now. You don't have to worry about any kind of incursion into the park for the moment, okay? Just spend the lousy $40,000, whatever it is. You know, we have $76 million invested in our portfolio. Spend $40,000, $50,000, pave it over, and don't worry about it as far as another Sarah Cole or another terrible accident there. It's a no-brainer. Anybody listening? Anybody? 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 I'll be back.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address us on agenda item 10, the minutes? Seeing no one, look to the Mr. Brzezinski.
Move to approve the minutes of October 6.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Brzezinski, seconded by Mr. Wasserman. Discussion, hearing none. All in favor, aye. Opposed, passes unanimously. Council matters. Mr. Glickman.
Madam Mayor, thank you very much. This is, I think, appropriate for council matters. It's a troubling matter. In our weekly staff report, staff brought to our attention some issues concerning the Park Commission and some suggested actions for the council. And since we are a very, very public entity, I do think that some comment is necessary and perhaps some consensus on the council. But let me read the item if I might. Staff has facilitated an Arts Commission retreat and meeting regarding commission operations and music in the park. Specifically, Ori, our town attorney, detailed the Brown Act requirements for the commission due to staff concerns about repeated and continuing potential Brown Act violations. Staff remains concerned, given subsequent actions by individual art commissioners, and individual counseling may be required at some point as called for under the Council Code of Conduct policy. In addition, we will be working with the Council Policy Committee to clarify the policymaking/advisory roles of commissions as separate from their volunteer roles. This could eliminate a substantial part of the problems faced by the Art Commission, as well as to clarify operations for other commissions as well. In addition, the Art Commission will likely be proposing some changes to the Music in the Park guidelines that were last reviewed and adopted in 2003. The changes under discussion include A, specifying that music in the park, and this is the recommendation of the Arts Commission, is intended to serve and connect Los Gatos families, residents, and businesses, not the broader Silicon Valley community. Implicit in this discussion is the expectation that MIP remains in the town central lawn. Recognizing MIP as the signature event for the Arts Commission and as an opportunity to support town arts more broadly through featuring each concert and the use of excess funds raised to augment the town arts grants program. And then C, elimination of the requirement that each series encompass an array of music of, quote, diverse cultural origin, which is the current council policy and direction, which has not been the practice in recent years. And it indicates that the potential changes will come to us on November 3rd. A couple of comments on this, which I have to believe that all the council members find very, very troubling. Let me do them in reverse order. When I read a comment that says, we really want to I guess restrict is a strong word, but not the broader Silicon Valley community, and then added a comment about we don't want to encompass an array of music of diverse cultural origins. That mixture sounds on the kind of note that I really don't think this council wants to endorse. The reality of our demographics is that we're not as diverse as some other communities, but we welcome diversity. And any suggestion to the contrary should very clearly not be council policy or policy advocated by any of our commissions. And as far as the problems that are being experienced by individual arts commissioners and, unfortunately, potential violations, my only comment would be that, these are people we know and they're our friends. So I think that any action that the council takes or any individual council member is involved in has to be very, very sensitive to any potential issues that would indicate that that council member perhaps should devolve that responsibility on another council member. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Council matters. Anything else? All right. Manager matters.
Yes, Mayor and Council. Several items. First, did want to acknowledge, as I did earlier in the night, Mr. Bud Lortz. This is the first meeting since his announcement as the forthcoming Deputy Town Manager, once we complete the search for his successor as Director of Community Development. Similarly, just today we announced executive staff rotation, both to meet the needs in the town as well as the professional development of the staff. And you see with us tonight Captain Elena Forrest, who is going to be providing direct support to the Mayor, Council, the Assistant Town Manager, and myself, as well as overseeing the operations of the Clerk's office in her acting role as assistant to the town manager and manager of administrative services. The incumbent in that role, Jenny Haruyama, who you've seen many evenings here, is taking over as acting finance manager, given the resignation of the prior occupant of that office as we launch a budget process. It was critical to make this shift, both for the smooth operation of the town as well as the professional development, and I did want to take a minute to acknowledge and congratulate both Elena and, in her absence, Jenny. So, thank you. 3 other announcements. This Friday is the last day for applications for town commissions. We have 19 vacancies on 11 commissions with 8 applicants to date. Most of the applications come in towards the end, but this Friday is the deadline. Second, prior to your next meeting on Saturday, November 1st, will be the first community input process for the update of the general plan that the council launched earlier this year. And that will be occurring from 9:30 to 12 at Fisher Middle School, again on Saturday, November 1st. And then our next council meeting on Monday, November 3rd, starts early at 5:30 p.m. with a study session for the council on the new library conceptual design, to be followed on Thursday, November 13th at 7 p.m., again here in the council chambers with a community meeting and input on the conceptual design for the new library. That concludes staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Congratulations, Elena and Jenny and TV Land, and the meeting is adjourned.